What's going on? It's SFT back with another video. This video is going to be based on Dallas Cowboys, my thoughts on how they've looked in the free agency and how I've been disappointed in them. And I don't know why I'm disappointed in them, it's on me, but I've just been generally disappointed in them. Same old Cowboys, repeating the same old cycle. Before I get into this video, please like, I'd really appreciate that. Subscribe too, helps. And let's get into it. Coming off of last year where they had a very similar start to this free agency as they did last year, there was nothing much to come out of free agency except some re-signings, but a lot of departures and some holes in the roster, right? However, you gave Dak Prescott that brand new contract that final day to keep him, and you, as Jerry Jones said, trusted him to lead this franchise to a quote-unquote Super Bowl. Can't even lead them deep in the playoffs, but it's ridiculous. And re-signed last season CeeDee Lamb to that huge deal, right? So they put in a lot of money into two big players that are typically seen on a championship team, like a great receiver and a good quarterback to a great quarterback. You invest a lot of money in them, you want them to stay in your franchise, and the Dallas Cowboys did that. Now they committed that money to Dak and CeeDee rather than committing it to other aspects of their roster, which left holes in their roster, which left them coming into this season with nothing but just big re-signings. Really disappointing. You need so much more. What's going to take you over that edge? What's going to give you that extra quality? You thought you can just run it back with a team that, if you were to watch that Green Bay game a year, I'd say 2 years ago now, or now maybe a year ago, if you were to watch that Green Bay game in the playoffs, you would clearly see they're not good enough, okay? But you ran it back with that same roster. Dak Prescott injury, out for the rest of the season, and you've ended up with an average record. Average record for an average team, and you go into the season now, some of my expectations at least were to see this, okay? Can you build, I'm not expecting high expectations, right? Can you get some big free agent signings and pick apart some free agents from other teams such as the Buffalo Bills, from the Ravens, some other teams like the Chiefs, teams that you can put competitive offers for certain positions, and you know they potentially cannot keep up with you because they're paying off a wide receiver, for example, in Shakir. They're paying off Josh Allen, for example, if I'm talking about the Bills, right? They're paying off their offensive line. They're paying off some pretty big money for their defensive ends, for their safeties, for their corners, for their linebackers, right? So in Matt Milano. So can we pick apart one of their good players and give him a more enticing contract? You weren't able to do that. The only thing you did really for the Dallas Cowboys is re-sign Osa Odighizuwa. That's all you did, okay? Now, if we were to look at the other signings and quickly get into how this free agency has looked for Dallas, you can see Dante Fowler for 1 year, which is their recent signing at defensive end. Running back Javonte Williams, Robert Jones, offensive lineman, defensive lineman Solomon Thomas, defensive end Payne Turner, Jack Somburn as a backup linebacker, running back Miles Sanders just left and got waived actually from the Panthers, right? Outside linebacker Dante Fowler, who was with them the previous year, had a great year for Washington in a really good system that highlighted some of his qualities and in general made a lot of those guys in that Washington defense have looked bad for a decent time, maybe 4 or 5 years, look very good. They looked very good last year. And Joe Milton, they brought him in. He wanted to go to Dallas, right? Be a backup quarterback there. He had a choice. Where do you want to go? He decided, I want to go to Dallas. Classy move by the Patriots, but I don't understand what Joe Milton's like, what you're going to compete with, man. I just can't understand it. I guess you're going to be the first quarterback if Dak gets injured, right? Sounds good to him. If you're the Cowboys, you haven't re-signed Micah Parsons yet. We're waiting for that contract to come out because it's going to be a hefty contract, right? It's going to be a big one, and he's not going to budge on it. It's his first contract coming from that rookie deal. Best believe he's going to break the bank. When you're with a team like Dallas, I just want to mention this in general. Like when you're with a team like Dallas who doesn't have Super Bowl aspirations, who doesn't have guys that are going to buy him because they know we're not good enough. Like it's not like the Bills where a lot of those guys are willing to, outside of, I'm not going to say a lot of those guys because most of them are going to take as much as they can get, right? But some guys are willing to take a little bit less to be on a great team. If you're on a team like the Dallas Cowboys, you're taking every single dollar. Now, there's some guys who are dumb enough and who will be on a losing team and take less, like Darius Slayton on the Giants, right? He wants to stay in New York, so he took less rather than going somewhere else and getting paid maybe an extra $2-3 million on his deal a year, right? I think he could have got far better, especially with New York taxes, but he decided to make the decision to stay, okay, and be a part of whatever process they're doing down there in New York. the New York Giants, man. But we got to get back to Dallas, man. Just, You have Micah Parsons' contract coming up. We're going to be waiting for that. Another big contract. So we're looking at a team where they have big money in key positions that are supposed to be a sign of a great team, right? It's very similar to Jacksonville if you were to think about it. They have big money in a guy like Trevor Lawrence. They have big money in one of their receivers, or if you were to combine both the receivers, who they both let go at the beginning of free agency, and they have big money in Hines Allen. So you would think that that means this is a team that's in those key positions. They have big money in, high performers. We can hopefully get something great out of them, but you get nothing out of them, and you have to somewhat try to blow it up or salvage whatever bad situation you have. If you're the Cowboys, like, you're trading him, man. You really need to trade him. And if you look at this coaching staff too, I just have to hop to that. You have Clayton Adams as your OC. I have no really issue with that because I expect the head coach to be calling plays rather than him, similar to the way the last head coach called plays for the Dallas Cowboys. You have Matt Eberflus for DC. Now, I'm not too much of a fan of that. I'm going to get to that a little bit after. But we're going to have Brian Schottenheimer as their head coach. I'm not a big fan of that at all. Hiring from the inside, hiring losers to, I don't know, like, they're not going to set a new floor. A bunch of guys who are just going to give Jerry Jones the leeway and the right to do anything they want and no pushback. They're not going to set a standard. They're not going to fight the culture that has been brewing in this facility for years and years and years. They're not going to fight that. They're just going to get along with it. Okay, I got a head coaching job for the Dallas Cowboys. Congratulations, I accomplished what I want with my career. And that's it. It's a very sad thing to see, you know. It's a showing of mediocrity, obviously, but it's just something that's so Dallas Cowboys. Rather than hiring somebody that's competent, that's elite, somebody that can push your team to a new level, competing in this new job market, right, for coordinators from different places. I would say Joe Brady from the Bills, who's done a really good job, you know. If you were to look at some of the more successful teams in the league, pick off one of their coordinators. No different than the Jags did. No different than so many of these teams have done for so long. Rather than hiring inside, like, why do you do this? Like, what is there to gain from this? I want to get to Matt Eberflus, though. You do not have the talent to expect a lot from Matt Eberflus. I think he's a good, like, defensive coach. I think if he's a very good defensive coach, if you were to give him great talent or a relatively stacked defense, he could do excellent with that and pick his guys out. Is this like Dallas Cowboys general manager and recruitment going to give him the talent that he needs? Because when you were to look at those Chicago teams, right, initially terrible defense, first 2 years terrible defense, that third year though, they just blossomed. You had all the guys, you had the Josh Sweats, you had excellent corners, you had really good defensive tackles, you had really good linebackers who replaced the previous Roquan Smith. People were not too happy when he got traded, at least in Chicago, right? But they found a way to replace him with not better production, but similar to a little bit less production in that linebacking core. Yes, you lost a really big leader. However, you got to spend that money a little bit else and spread it out across that defense. And I thought personally that this defense would have been elite without the whole situation that happened with that offense and that offensive line, everything. If you were to just look at that defense by itself without getting negatively impacted by the offense with the turnovers, the lack of production, that defense would have been elite, man. If you're looking at some of their games against, for example, the Colts, right, the work that they gave teams like the Green Bay Packers, this team has looked relatively good, man. And now they have had bad games like against the 49ers. However, what matters is that they had the talent and they were groomed to be what Matt Eberflus wanted them to be. Now, is he going to have that same control, that same leeway, the same finances? We're clearly seeing right now nothing but re-signing and small signings rather than giving him that money to go out there and to really build that defense. You don't have the same leeway. You don't have the same investment that you can put because of Dak Prescott, because of the CeeDee Lambs, because you have a guy like Trayvon Diggs on that big contract. I don't know how that looks now because it doesn't look good at all, right? Just a lot of headaches. When I look at this team, a lot of headaches, a lot of just what the heck is going on here. Now I'm going to get into what they needed. They needed to spend big money on some key signings to make up for some relatively big holes, okay? This offensive line didn't produce that good this year. And you can look at it and say Zach Martin has missed a little bit of the season. Really underwhelming production from certain guys on the offensive line like Steele. I believe both their tackles aren't really playing that good. The only one I'll say is playing good is their left guard. Their center, rookie, I believe. Their right guard, inexperienced, and he was getting substituted in and out. With Zach Martin, now Zach Martin's gone. He retired. So now you're going to have a big hole in your offensive line, a leader, and the remnants of an old elite offensive line that used to be there. But now the guards are gone, and all you have is a overpriced quarterback and a below average offensive line. In this draft, I expect them hopefully go out, get yourself a right guard, get yourself something that can really bolster this offensive line, and that can be the future of it. And it doesn't make any sense to me. It will never make sense to me. How are you supposed to grow an offensive line and have a quarterback in his 30s? How does that make sense? Like, this is not something any team does. Like, this is unique to all teams. I don't think I've seen this in some time. Trying to grow a team, trying to grow an offensive line while your quarterback is on a max contract. And this is something that happens in quarterbacks' rookie years. This is something that happens with teams that want to rebuild. But who cares? It's the Dallas Cowboys, right? So if they can get somebody in this draft to make up for that position, and they can slowly develop and groom him into being a really good guard, or whether it be get a tackle, because Terrence Steele has played poorly this year, and his contract, he's getting paid around $18 million, man, as a right tackle. He's going to be the face of their offensive line, and he's been disappointing. So you have an offensive lineman in him that they can't get rid of, who's getting paid $18 million, and he's not performing. You have a left tackle who's young, who needs to develop, who's getting cooked, okay? He's getting cooked week in, week out. You have a left guard who's really good, and they hit on. They have a center who's young. I think they recently drafted him. I believe so. And they have a right guard who needs to be replaced. Oh my God, okay? Now you look at that receiving core, I don't care too much about it. You look at their running back core, Miles Sanders. When it comes to running the football, it's really about your offensive line. It's not about getting a guy like... number 2 from Boise State. It's not about it, okay? It's not about getting an elite running back. An elite running back will never save a poor offensive line. They will never. This is not the 70s. It's not the 80s, man. These defensive linemen, these linebackers, these schemes are real. They're going to expose you for the lack of quality you have, okay? But we're going to get back to some of the bigger issues I have. DeMarcus Lawrence on defensive side, he's obviously going to leave. You have a little bit of money now to probably spend on a guy like Micah Parsons. However, you're going to be having a little hole on that side. You know, I think DeMarcus Lawrence wasn't too bad. I think it was pretty good, actually, for them, right? I think he gets a lot of heat because he was supposed to be the face of that defensive line, and he just wasn't to that standard. He was supposed to be the next guy to the defensive line before Micah Parsons, but he was not to that standard. But he was a good player. I liked him. I think he was a good player. I think him and Micah Parsons were both healthy. When that defensive line is really clicking, they could be something excellent. If we were to look at some of their re-signings, as I mentioned earlier, Oza Adigizua, their defense on the defensive line, re-signed 4-year around $80 million. Not too angry at that. You need to keep your defensive linemen. In terms of the linebacking core, that's where I start to have some of the bigger issues. You bring in a guy like Dante Fowler, who did not do too good the year before, last year with the Cowboys, and you got rid of him because he wasn't good enough, okay? Now, instead of going into the market competing, trying to pick up a guy like Dre Greenlaw, trying to put in a competitive offer to pick up certain linebackers, and these are not too expensive linebackers too. Something that you've really needed, a guy who could set a tempo, a guy who could lead your defense. Rather than doing that, you settle for Dante Fowler to come back. Isn't that crazy? Like, that right there is like an encapsulation of what the Dallas Cowboys are. Like, rather than going out being competitive, you know what? He wasn't too bad. Let's get him back. He can fill up a roster spot, you know, nothing special. What the heck is this? You have a little bit more money to spend now, man. And even if you were to sign Micah Parsons, right, you still have some money to work with, okay? You have your secondary, who to me is not too big of an issue. One of your guys left. He went to go play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. However, he'll be fine. He was only a slot corner. They can find a guy to replace him. But to me, that linebacker position, they had an opportunity to go out there, spend some money, and get one. And they didn't. I expect them at least to invest definitely in their offensive line coming into this draft. Try to get some quality in it. Look to bolster up their defensive line, especially because they were getting ran through last year and the year before last year, right? And I don't even know what else to say, man. It's just disappointment on disappointment on disappointment. Like, this team, the way I'm talking about them, you would think like they're a young team. You would think that they don't have a quarterback on 60 a year. You think that they don't have a receiver on 32, 35 a year. You think that they don't have a edge rusher that's going to be on potentially 40 a year. I'm being serious with you right now. The way I'm talking about this team, you would think they're the damn Saints. You would really think they're the Saints. You would think that they're a team that you don't know what you're going to do, and you should just be focused on rebuilding. But no, this team is this team is going to keep the same nucleus and go right back into next season, get the exact same result. I'm trying to tell you, man. Insanity. Doing the same things over and over and over again. Not just that, doing the worst things over and over and over again. At least, sometimes the Dallas Cowboys, at least the years before, drafted good, developed good. Man, they may not even draft good this year, and they're keeping the same team. These guys, man, like, how do you apply for the Dallas Cowboys job? Like, if you're the GM, Jerry Jones is the GM, but what do you say? Do you just praise him and that's it? Like, you put in no work, no hard work? Like, what goes on? And I would love to see, like, a documentary done on the Dallas Cowboys and what they do to get consistently bad results. This is greatness right here. This is really greatness right here, man. To consistently disappoint, to consistently do free agency worse and worse. Now you don't even have any big signings anymore. Like, you're not even re-signing your big guys anymore, man. You might probably re-sign Michael Parsons and a free agency like you did Dak Prescott. But outside of that, 1-year signings? Like, you are acting like you're keeping together a championship roster. You're acting like you're Kansas City Chiefs or something. Like, you went back-to-back, got blown out, and now you're trying to make something out of whatever. And trade a couple of contracts, and if they're on their last year, even if they're quality guys and you can't really reach an agreement with them, that's how you're acting. You're the Dallas Cowboys, man. You're no different than the Saints. Man, that's it for this video, okay? Please like, subscribe. I'm out, man. I can't talk anymore.